Well, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us today from Germany, from Berlin. And so I'm just going to pass over to you. You're going to tell us something about how to apply for a study program at Freie University Berlin and give us some hints about how to best prepare our application. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to start right now with my presentation. I hope everybody can hear me well. If not, please write something in the questions box and then I can adjust my microphone. So I'm Sarah. I work at the Center for Academic Advising and Psychological Counseling at Freie Universität Berlin, which is one of the big universities here in Berlin. And my presentation will be about how to apply for a study program. And let's see. This is the content I prepared. So after giving a brief overview of what it means to be studying at our university, I will point out what the admission process for bachelor's and master's degree programs looks like. So I will talk about questions such as what are the admission requirements, what level of German do I need, what documents do I have to prepare, how does the selection process take place. And in the end, we will talk about if there is a way to increase your chances of being admitted to your chosen study program. And we will start by looking at some facts and figures about Freie Universität Berlin. We have approximately 30,000 students, about 4,300 doctoral students, over 550 professors, 16 departments and central institutes that altogether offer about 180 study programs. And so if you're interested later in learning more about Freie Universität Berlin, I'm happy to share more information. But for the remainder of the presentation, I tried to point out everything that is more or less relevant for other universities as well, even though the admission requirements are very specific for our university, as each university has their own admission requirements. Before I point these out, just to give you a brief overview, these are the typical degree programs that we offer in Germany, as is the case at our university as well. Normally, the bachelor programs that are offered at Freie Universität Berlin are conceptualized as 3-year programs, and the master programs normally 2-year programs. But there can be some 4-year programs, especially if you look at other universities, you will also see some 4-year bachelor's programs. And we also have these programs that are called state exam programs, which are the subjects of medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, and pharmacy. They have a slightly different structure. So, okay, this overview shows you the application process for all of those who have a non-German degree. And I was told before that maybe some of the people who joined today might have a German Abitur. So most of what I will point out is relevant for those people as well. But if you have a German Abitur, and Abitur is the name of our secondary school leaving certificate, then you wouldn't need to prove German knowledge, for instance. But as we can see here, there are 6 important steps in the application process. And the first one is to check out the admission requirements. The second, fill out the application form, send the application documents via mail before the deadline ends, and then wait while the selection process takes place. And if you are lucky and you receive an admission notice, then you have to take a German test if your study program, the one you apply to, is a German one. And then, if you pass the German test, you can enroll as a student. And now I want to highlight the first step, the admission requirements. And later on we will focus on step 3 and 4, and I think that's what is most important today. So, when we look at the admission requirements of a bachelor's program, it looks quite simple. you need a higher education entrance qualification. And you might wonder why in the first bullet point I put HZB in brackets. This is the abbreviation for the German term, which is a quite long and typical German word. It's Hochschulzugangsberechtigung, HZB. And in Germany, this is normally the Abitur. But if you didn't go to a German school, then you need something similar to a German Abitur, which normally is a secondary school leaving certificate that allows you to study in your own country, in this case in Spain, and normally it can be in conjunction with a special university entrance exam or some study experience. This depends. You also need to prove sufficient German skills, except for our English bachelor's program North American Studies. And depending on the study program, you also might have to prove additional language skills. But that's it. You just have to prove that you're allowed to study and prove your German skills and maybe additional language skills. So to point out what this higher education entrance qualification actually means in the case of Spanish secondary school leaving certificates, I want to show you this graph, and I will give you about 30 seconds to just look at it, see what it means, and then I will explain. Okay, I am not quite sure. I didn't count the 30 seconds, but I will start. You can see on the right-hand side that there in the circles it's general higher education entrance qualification or subject-specific one. And if you went to school in Spain and you have the título de bachiller and together with either the pruebas de acceso a la universidad or la evaluación de bachillerato para el acceso a la universidad, you can see I get a little bit confused with the Spanish terms. If you have these, then this means you have a general higher education entrance qualification in Germany, meaning you're allowed to apply to all the subjects that are offered. If you have something else, something for instance like the técnico superior, this would mean you only have a subject-specific higher education entrance qualification, meaning that you are only allowed to apply for subjects that are similar to the ones you already took. Other than that, it could also be that you would have to take an extra assessment exam, but this is typically not the case with Spanish school leaving certificates. But to be sure, you should always check out what kind of higher education entrance qualification you have. And I listed some of the links that offer databases where you can check this out for yourself, especially if you're not so sure if you fulfill the criteria. And I was told that you can download the presentation later on, so you can click on the links later. And I will not say anything more about this. And if there are some among you who would like to apply for a master's program, the admission requirements are a little bit different, but a lot of the things are similar as well. You need a bachelor's degree or some kind of other study that you finished, a first undergraduate university degree. And you would always, or in almost all cases, you would need a certain amount of credit points in a certain field of study, which is related to the master's program you are applying to. So for instance, if I want to apply for a master's program in economics, I would already need some credit points in the field of economics and not have studied just a bachelor's of biology. So there has to be a connection in most cases. There are some exceptions. And you need to prove sufficient German skills for those programs held in German and sufficient English skills for programs held in English. And depending on the study program, you might also have to prove additional language skills. And since this can differ, or it does differ from master to master, I provided a link where you can check this out for yourself if you're interested. in a master's program. So now we have looked at the admission requirements and to point out how you can prove your language skills, since this is a very important point and something that can be quite hard sometimes, I pointed some more information out here. So if you have to prove German skills, which will be the case for almost all of our bachelor's programs, except this North American studies and the majority of our master's programs, you prove your German skills by taking an exam, which takes place at our university, and this is called Deutsche Sprachprüfung für den Hochschulzugang, DSH, and it needs to be level 2. There are some equivalents, other tests you could take if you prefer to take another test, maybe even before applying already, which could be Test DAF if you have level 4 in all 4 parts, or TELC C1 Hochschule. There are other equivalents which are listed on our webpage, and in the last slide I will give you all the relevant links. And other language skills, in many cases you have to prove English knowledge, may be required, and oftentimes this can be proven just by showing your secondary school leaving certificate. If you have fulfilled a certain amount of years of English classes, but this can differ, and that's why we also provided a link here where you can check this out. And something I wanted to point out regarding the German skills, because this DSH is quite a high level. It's between C1 and C1 when you take the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, the CEFR, something you probably already heard, where you have the steps A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And so if until the application deadline you do not fulfill this high German knowledge, at our university there is an advantage, because at the time of the application deadline, when you have to send the application documents, you only need to prove German knowledge on the level of B22 of this common reference frame. You need to show the grades of your certificate, or it would also be enough to show that you participated in a C1 course. That would be fine as well. And after you got admitted, you have to take the DSH test, and of course successfully, in order to enroll. But this is a slight advantage if your level is, if you cannot prove the high level that you need for the enrollment. On the other hand, the application deadline is for bachelor's programs July 15th for the winter semester, and the DSH test takes place in September, so there's not a lot of time in between. Also something that you need to consider. Yeah, so now we looked at the admission requirements, and in the next step I would like to point out what application documents you need. This is actually something quite simple. I will show you the list and the links where you can find additional information. So let's first look at bachelor's programs. Here we go. And as you can see, here is a list of the most important documents. So you need to hand in certified, which means notarized, copies of all school leaving qualifications and university certificates, which are part of your university entrance qualification. You need translations by a sworn translator of your diplomas and certificates, if those were not issued in either German or English. And you need to prove that you meet all the required German skills, as I just pointed out, B22 for the application, but later on you need to prove a higher skill for the enrollment. And when we look at master's programs, we see that the list is slightly longer, but not that much. You definitely need to hand in a certified copy of your graduation certificate. with a final grade if you have completed your studies already, an official transcript of records, also the translations, and depending on the master's program, German or English skills. I mentioned this before. We do offer some master's programs that are completely in English, so in that case you would only need to prove English skills. But there might also be additional language skills that you need to prove, and sometimes even additional study-related skills, also something that you can find out when you click on the link below. And a note on what certified copy means, because sometimes we get asked what this actually means. It means that you have to go to somebody, for instance a notary, or you could go to an embassy or the Ministry of Education, where copies get notarized, and oftentimes even the schools or universities that issued the originals in the first place, they also do certified copies. And this means that there is a stamp, an official stamp on the copy, and an original signature by the person who certified the copy. And you need to hand in these certified copies. Otherwise, your application would not be accepted. And it's important that all the certified copies arrive at the organization that checks international applications for our university. It's called UniAssist. That it arrives at before the deadline or at the last day of the deadline, but not after that. So the application documents, this is just a list that we just saw. And now something that is slightly more complicated is this fourth step, the waiting period, where you just have to wait and hope that you get selected. And I would imagine that this selection process is something that is quite specific and quite complicated to understand. We have a different selection process for bachelor's programs and master's programs, and I will point out the bachelor's programs selection process first and then the master programs ones. And I try not to be too specific, but unfortunately it is quite a complicated process, so later in the Q&A feel free to ask me all the questions. So let's see. First of all, here we see a diagram that doesn't look too complicated. These are the main admission quotas for holders of a German Abitur and citizens of a European country, Iceland, Norway, or Liechtenstein. And this is only relevant for subjects with restricted admission. So we do offer also a number of bachelor's programs that have unrestricted admission. In that case, you still need to prove that you fulfill the admission requirements, but it is guaranteed that you get a place in that study program. Later you will see a link where you can check out if the study program you are interested in is restricted admission or not. And for those with a restricted admission, this means that there is a so-called numerus clausus. Numerus clausus just means admissions are limited. A limited number of study spots are available. And these are given to those applying for these study programs according to these quotas. Before these quotas are taken into account, there are some quotas that are called pre-selected or pre-selected segments, which are, for instance, there are 8% of the study places are only for those applicants who are from non-European countries. And after all these pre-selected segments are filled up, the remainder of the study spots, which is the majority, are given out by these three quotas that we can see here on the slide. And these three are divided into waiting time, which is 20% of the time of the quota of the places. Then we have something called Abiturbestenquote in German, which roughly translated means quota for those with the highest Abitur grades, or in your case, your secondary school leaving grades. And the biggest part of this quota is 60% of the available study spots, which is called Auswahlverfahren der Hochschule in German, and the translation is higher education institution selection process. And I will now point out what this means specifically. So quota for the highest Abitur grades, 20% of the available spots, are given out like this. And here, applicants get selected according to their grade point average, GPA, of their secondary school leaving certificate. So if you have a very, very good grade, your grade gets translated into the German system. In Germany, 1 is the best grade and 4 is the worst one. And this gets translated by UniAssist, this organization which checks and controls the international applications. And so if you have a very good GPA, you get a high spot in this list for this quota. If you say, okay, my grades really weren't that good, but maybe it's already 2 or 3 years ago that you took your secondary school leaving certificate, that you finished, let's say, high school, then the waiting quota is quite interesting for you. Because 20% of the available spots are given to those who have the most waiting time. And when you look at the third bullet point here, let's read this together, what this means. The waiting time is comprised of every semester that you have not been enrolled in an institution of higher education in the European Union, Iceland, Norway or Liechtenstein, after acquiring your Abitur, or in your case, your secondary school diploma. And when we talk about semesters, we mean the summer semester, which is from April to September, and the winter semester, which is from October to March. So, depending on when you took your secondary school diploma and the date when you apply, there could be a certain amount of time that is your waiting time. And the university does not care what you did in that time, unless you were enrolled. Then it wouldn't call in a university, then it wouldn't be counted as waiting time. But you could have traveled, you could have done nothing, you could have worked, whatever. This doesn't matter. Every semester counts as waiting time if you're not enrolled in a university. So this could be quite interesting for some of you. And maybe not. Those of you who just left school, we already heard there's this 20% grade where it's just about grades, but the biggest quota, this higher education institution selection process quota, is the most important one, obviously. And here we have 3 factors that get counted. So first of all, again, it's about your average grade, your GPA. Either your Abitur or wherever you went to school, as long as it is in the European Union. But then there's also something called major subject courses, which in German is called Leistungskurs. These give you an advantage if you fulfill this factor. I will point out in a bit what this actually means. And if you have some relevant vocational experience, professional training, employment or internships, this could also give you an advantage in this quota. So when we look at this quota, there is a formula how this quota, how your point value is in this quota, and this differs from person to person. And the lower your point value, the better. So let's look at this formula. You take your average grade times 75. Unfortunately, in order to know your average grade in the German system, you have to apply first and then see what your grade was. So right now it will be very difficult for you to transfer your grade yourself and know what your point value is in that quota. So you take your average grade times 75, and then you subtract 15 points if one major subject course criteria is fulfilled, and minus 15 again if the second one is fulfilled, and minus 5 points if you fulfill the criteria of vocational or professional training. And this depends on which subject you apply to. So, for instance, if you apply to German philology, it is an advantage if you took German as a major subject in your high school. Major subject means that it counted at least twice for your final grade and that you took it at an advanced level throughout the last 4 semesters of your school. So you have to check and see if this criteria is fulfilled with the school you went to. If you have the feeling it is not something you fulfill, you still get your point value and you still are taken into account in this quota, because then your point value is just your average grade times 75, or maybe minus the 5 points if you did an internship that fulfills the criteria for the specific subject you are applying to. So in order to know how do I even know if I fulfill all the criteria, there's a link provided in a bit where everything is explained, and the word you always have to look for at all the German universities where you apply for and where you want to know what the admission process looks like is always numerus clausus. Yeah, that's very important. So okay, we have here the selection process for master's programs, and here it's a little bit simpler. There's also a pre-selection segment. 5% of the study places are given to so-called hardship applications, but the remainder of the places are given to the 2 quotas mentioned here. Again, 20% of the places are given to those who have the most waiting time. In this case, not after your secondary school diploma, but after your bachelor's degree. And each semester again counts as 1 waiting semester if you weren't enrolled in a university. And 80% of the study spots are given to the applicants following criteria set up by Freie Universität itself. And the most important factor normally is the grade of the bachelor's degree. But there can be some additional criteria, and again I listed a link here that gives you information on the specific admissions criteria in your master's program. But normally it's about 80% are the grade and 20% waiting time. So I'm already coming to an end of my presentation. This last question: is there a way to increase my chances of admission to my chosen study program? So looking at bachelor's programs, as you saw, it's mostly about your GPA, your average grade, and about the waiting time. And yes, you can improve your chances of getting admitted in the waiting time quota by not studying for quite a while, of course. But in the end, if you find that a certain study program is difficult to get into at our university, it might be the case that at other universities in other parts of Germany, it's easier to get a study place in exactly or in a similar study program. So in cases like this, we really recommend to talk to the academic advisors, as they can help you find or come to a decision that is satisfying for you. So in a bachelor's admission process, one thing, doing an internship can give you a slight advantage, as you could see, but also not a very big one. This can be different at other universities. And looking at master's programs, we can see again waiting time and grade. So in the end, what you can do to increase your chances is, if you haven't finished your secondary school, or if you haven't finished your bachelor's degree, then try to get really good grades, but depending on the study program. And so my advice is to check out what the admission limits have looked like in the past, and if the study program you're interested in is difficult to get into or not, because this can differ greatly from study program to study program. And if you have further questions, you definitely should ask them right now, but later on, if you come across a question, do not hesitate to contact us. We have an info service and a student services center, which is open every day from Monday to Friday, and you can call. It's no problem to ask the questions in English, in German obviously as well. You can write by mail, info-service@fu-berlin.de. And if you're here in Berlin for a visit, come see us at the Student Services Center, and you can make an appointment for the Center of Academic Advising and could end up speaking to me, for instance. So these are the links I mentioned before, and I guess this is something you can just click on later when you download the presentation. So I am actually at the end of my presentation and happy to answer questions now. And I will turn on
Thank
my
you very much
webcam
for that
now.
very concise presentation. I think there has been a lot of information already. Thanks a lot. Now I'm just waiting for the first questions to come up, and then we're going to try to answer them here. Up to now, I don't have anything, but I am seeing that Ayar Kumar is just writing something. Hi, are you going to say about something about scholarships for bachelor programs? Okay, now I'm not quite sure if you were talking about scholarship programs from the DAAD. In this case, we do not have scholarships on the bachelor level. We just have scholarships for postgrad. That means masters and later doctorate or investigation projects. I don't know if there's anything that the Freie Universität has apart from it. So I'm going to give the question to our guest.
Yeah. Actually, the Freie Universität Berlin does not offer scholarships per se, but there are numerous scholarships you can apply to. There's also called something Deutschlandstipendium, which you can apply for while you already study here at the university. And on the last slide, the one you probably still see, I think one of the last links is about scholarships. It's called Stipendienlotse.de, and this is a very, very useful page for looking for scholarships.
Page that's called Funding Guide. On the funding-guide.de, you're going to have the chance to see all kinds of scholarships for internationals, and that'd be quite interesting in English. I don't know if the Stipendienlotse also exists in English. I think. So
oh, good question. I'm not so sure. So yeah, perfect that you have the link here.
That's just going to be a part of it. Actually, there's a lot of programs, a lot of scholarships all over. Some of them are very specific. So it might be that you have to be a certain age, a certain sex, and a certain region of Germany to receive that scholarship for a certain discipline. And others that are quite general, that like ours. So just have a look and find out what could apply to you in that case. Is there any more questions? Okay. Ah, yeah, we're gonna get the presentation after that. Yeah, I'm just gonna. It's not uploaded yet, but I'm gonna put it on the last website, on the last webpage. So don't drop out too fast. I'm just gonna upload the presentation in a second. Are there any further questions for Ms. Horstman? Okay, someone is writing. So we're just gonna wait a minute. También se puede preguntar en español por si acaso que que el inglés cuesta un poco y lo vamos a traducir, o ni siquiera hace falta a lo mejor. Lo respondemos luego en inglés, pero podríamos entenderlo fácilmente en español por si eso fuera un obstáculo. Someone is writing, so that's why we're waiting here. So we don't want to leave here without every question answered. Okay, so I'm sorry, I may be late, and probably you have already talked about that, but in which language are the lectures conducted? That's from Sarah Thung.
Yeah. If you're talking about lectures within the single study programs at our university, this is quite different. So if I talk about a program offered in English, all the lectures would be offered in English as well. But take, for instance, political science, a bachelor program that is offered officially in German, but still offers lots of lectures in English. That's also one of the reasons why you need to prove English knowledge for a lot of study programs. I hope that answered the question.
A biology master's, I was interested in that, so I guess.
Ah, okay, yeah. So for those of you who would like to check out single master programs and see in what language they are offered, it's a good idea to go on our homepage with a list of not biology, all the master programs, which is the first link provided in the slide that you can still see. It's fu-studienangebot.de, and you probably want to know if the master program you're interested in is held in English, and I will check this right now, and I can tell you. We have biochemistry and bioinformatics is in English,
my colleague,
but not biology.
Irene just sent you also another link if you just want to find out in general where you could study in English. Then you would always have the chance to filter and study in DE, and then you find all the programs that you want in the language that you need. So there are some of the studies at the Freie Universität in English will also appear. And then if you feel like looking only for the English programs, you could also Google DAAD international programs, and then you find just the international programs in all the universities. So that'd be going to be interesting as well. We have another question, and that's from Rami Budasgaunt. I hope Budasgaunt. I hope that I pronounced that well. He wants to know when the last chance is to apply for a master's normally in Germany.
This is also one of the things that can differ from master to master and from university to university. In the case of Freie Universität Berlin, most master's programs have a deadline at the end of May each year. Most of them are only offered in winter semesters, so the deadline ends at the end of May. But this can differ. So again, you would have to check out the description of each master's program to see that.
Then we have
at other universities, it could differ.
By Pablo Rodriguez, who wants to know if internship periods at companies are valued in an application for master's programs.
In many cases, it's not relevant, but in some cases it could be, and this is sometimes a little bit frustrating that the answers cannot be more specific. But in the case of master's programs, each master program has their own admission criteria, so it could be. But as I said, in most cases, it's
Perfect.
about the bachelor's degree and
Thanks.
the grade on that.
We also wanted to know something about the international bachelor. So how about the application procedure if you have an international bachelor? Is that just accepted? Do you have to be careful to choose special configurations inside for the international bachelor, or is everything fine?
In that case, I would have to ask back for what subject would that be,
That's
or
one of
for
the
what
questions
field of study?
Irene. So Irene is just going to write. Or are you going to ask directly?
Ah, yeah, I can already see her typing.
Okay. Now what with Sarah? It was a general question, she says. So if you had to be careful to make the right choice in the subjects if you're doing the international bachelor, because we've heard some cases where you have to be careful with your configuration. So that's
Yeah.
why I asked.
Yeah, I'm just to be sure that we are talking about the same. Probably is international baccalaureate, right? Yeah, the school, secondary school, the IB. Yeah, yes, definitely. Very important question because yes, you would have to see that you take the right courses, and the links I provided on one of the slides, the one with the databases, where you can check out the question, do I have a higher education entrance qualification for Germany? All of these give information on the international baccalaureate as well. And in doubt, contact our info service or those info services of other universities. Because very important question, yes, it's not in general accepted.
If we've got more questions. Yeah,
I saw that Sarah wanted to.
Yeah, now we have to say that
Sarah
Hausmann can also see the questions. So actually, I'm reading them, but still. So I'm just going to repeat Sarah Zank.
Yeah.
Writes. I saw that one of the requirements is English level, but they make a German test. So that's why I was curious about the lectures if they were conducted in German.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. This will be the case for a lot of bachelor's and master's programs. You will have to pass this very high German test and also prove English knowledge, because a lot of the lectures are in English, and especially a lot of the texts that you have to read are in English.
Thanks.
So that's why you need both languages.
Okay, so if I'm seeing that right, we've already answered all the questions. Then I want to ask you thanks again for coming to give that talk to us. I hope that everyone who has some questions left will try to write us an email. If we can't answer them ourselves, we will forward them to you, to Freie Universität, for any answers that we could not provide. To anyone else, thank you very much for coming, and I'm just going to show you what's on the plan for the next weeks or for the next time. Now in 2 days, I'm just going to tell you once again about the possibilities to study in Germany all over, just to say how is the German university system working overall. Then we're going to have the 12th, next Monday, we're going to talk to the Uni Offenburg. There's someone trying to tell us about how to study in English there. and then we're going to have another expert in the list for applications. That's someone from UniAssist who's going to tell us how the platform is working if you want to apply via that platform, and also since they have a lot of experience with applicants from all over the world, they will be able to tell you what Spanish applicants might do to get the best formal results. And then the 26th of November, I'm going to tell you how to apply for our scholarships for the master. Now, tell you a little bit in depth what steps to go and where to look at your applications. Then on the 3rd of December, that's going to be interesting to show you a little bit how to investigate in Germany, what Germany has to offer in that field. And the 10th of December, we're going to have an expert with us telling you how to write a research proposal and how to find a German academic supervisor if you want to do a PhD in Germany. That's going to be one of the members of the Spanish scientists in Germany. That's an organization, the association, that is very helpful every time with us trying to build bridges between Germany and Spain. So that's what is gonna come up. I thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see some of you again next week or in the weeks to come. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Bye. Hi.
Hallihallo, noch sind ja
Ja.
Gäste bei uns. Deswegen, für alle, die jetzt noch da sind, para todos que todavía están, es que he subido la presentación aquí a la izquierda en presentación, presentations, so you can just download the file there.